Hey everyone, Jared here with Gearhead Grind. We're doing another video today, this one being an overview of the Can-Am Maverick X3 after our first race in this car. Overall, it did really well. You know, we had these lofty goals to go out and hopefully get a podium in that race, but realistically, we were out there doing a shakedown run of the car, trying to figure out what we need to improve on it, what was going to survive, what wouldn't, and how fast we were, figuring out driver communications, as well as navigation and a few other things. Overall, car did really well. Tons of great power. We got a new DynoJet tune and charge tube on there, new exhaust. Had some problems with tires. We did have one flat, as well as, you know, since we've had the car, we've had two other punctures that I've repaired as well. So need to get some new tires on it, doing lots of four-wheel drive burnouts on that course. As far as the finish, we did 7th in our class overall out of 15. So right in the middle there in the production 1000 turbo class, a super competitive class, lots of really fast cars in it. And then we did 22nd out of 44 or 45 overall in DP4 out of all the classes there. So did pretty solid, finished the race and made it through some quick times, but you know, we did have to stop as we thought we broke the front sway bar. It's just a little loose right now. Not sure what's going on. Got somebody from the pit saying it was broken, had tons of body roll. So that slowed us down a little bit, and then pulled over to change the flat as well. But overall, still really happy with it. So I'm going to take you through the car, all the parts on it, how it held up, and give you a little breakdown of the race. And then we'll wrap it up all at the end with some things that we're going to change moving forward. Thanks, and hopefully you enjoy the video here and the breakdown of the car. So here's the front of the car as it exists after the race. A little dusty, but overall in pretty good shape. You can see we have the awesome KC highlights here. A little dusty, but survived quite well. No real damage, and the ambers actually make great protectors for the glass lenses there, so you don't have much to worry about unless you take a big shot. Underneath, we took a few little scrapes to the skid plate. We did bottom out the front a few times. There's one kind of oh shit moment you'll see in the video of the race. Still got some debris hanging from the bottom of the car, but overall these full undercar skid plates did amazing in protecting the car. Had tons of rocks bouncing off them and various things as we kicked stuff up from the front, but also just going over the rough terrain. In the front, you also see we have these super ATV tubular control arms up here. Did very well in the race, especially with the 300M ultra heavy duty ball joints here. Protected it with the skid plates as well. We repurposed the stock control arm skids, just had to drill new holes here for the mounts in order to align with these aftermarket, you know, super ATV tubular control arms. But that gave us good protection as we were, you know, going through a few of the shrubs out there in the desert and various things, or any rocks kicked up from competitors. Help protect those control arms. Also in the front here, you can see we have this Gearhead Grind livery that we added to the front a little bit, pretty subtle. But also we have the stock, or not stock, we have, well, this is the stock, but this is the Gearhead Grind designed upper shock mount that actually ties down into the frame, prevents that shock tower from flexing, really holds everything to place. Watch the video from the race. That thing was rock solid the whole time. No signs of any wear, held up great. Now we can call it a race proven part, but really glad we built that. I think it did a great job. Also in the front here, we'll touch on this probably a little bit more, but we have the dual brand GPS antenna. So this is actually the antenna that provides a signal to our iPad. We have the iPad out of the car right now, but it typically sits there in the mount. We run lead nav for navigation. This makes sure that we have a signal at all times and from multiple satellites out there in the desert, instead of just relying on the cell data from the iPad. Supports up to 5 devices. And then we also extrude this, you know, misshapen screws here as we lost one, had to replace it. But we actually designed this housing in-house that captures this GPS mount. It has a rubber surround for the GPS unit to provide isolation from some vibrations, and it captures the USB cord here. Really cool piece. We're going to make that available for sale before too long. But did great. No problems with that at all. We do see we also have the transponder still on the car here. This just picks up so it knows what car you are when you cross over the finish line there. We also have these KC highlights, dual flex lights here. Did a custom mount integrated with our billet mirrors. Gonna retweak this design a little bit as it just relies on one bolt here and then one vertical. The vertical one is fine, but this one is rock solid still. But on the other side, we took a shot to the mirror and it loosened up a bit, so it allowed this light to drop forward a little bit, and we had to adjust that when we came into the pit. So gonna strengthen that, but overall great design. Just gonna learn from it and improve it as we go. Working down the car here a little bit. One thing of note is the car did settle quite a bit during the race with the stock coil springs. So it does seem to ride a bit lower now. I would guess 1 inch to 2 inches lower. So we do plan on putting aftermarket coil springs on, potentially from Shock Therapy or Ibec. Some, fully progressive coil springs on here. But right now it is riding a bit low, so if we're gonna take it out for another race before we replace them, we'll need to adjust that to get it back up to its stock or higher ride height. See, we did have to change a tire here, so we have one new one on the back that was the spare. And if we look in the back here, you can see we have a very flat tire here. We lost this going through a sharp rock section, came into it a little bit hot, locked up the brakes, and then or just locked them up for a second, but happened to hit a pretty sharp rock on the rear passenger side here. It kicked up the car, and within a mile or so, this guy was flat. So that was a bummer, but we were able to change it quickly. You can see here in the back, we do have a tool kit. All of this has just kind of since been put back into the car. This is not how it sat during the race. It tucks in here a little bit more and then is held down with the strap. But we do have our custom H1 scissor jack mount in here that we did in-house. So it straps onto this stock cross member and then goes down and bolts down into the bed. And so it allows this jack to come out with this one quick release pin right here. And then you just pull it up, slips out of there, no problem. And then on top of this jack, we have this extension. You basically pull this off, pull this pin out, put the extension on the scissor jack there, and that allows it to have great surface area. Go on the bottom of the car. In this case, the back, just put it right there in the middle, is able to jack up both sides of the car. So in case you have a problem with the suspension or anything, it does actually let you get both sides or both axles off the ground at the same time there in the back or the front. You can see we also have the custom number plates there, held up really, really well, still very solid. This is another in-house made part. We have the Savage UTV spare belt case. Thankfully, we didn't need to use a spare belt or anything, but we have it. Works great, no problems there at all. We also keep a impact here, so everything we need to change the tire, including the nut for the H1 jack that we welded on here. The nut for that is in there, the socket for that nut, the socket for the wheels and impact, and some various other things, including a recovery strap. We also have the first aid kit here that survived the car. Quick release fire extinguisher, everything's still really solid, except for the rear mounted GoPro mount. That aluminum housing kind of shook itself to death, allowing the door that holds the GoPro to open up and the other GoPro ejected into the car. You can see we also have the awesome KC highlights, rear blue lights back there, as well as a chase bar. And we do have some in-house custom axle mounts, which are really cool. But unfortunately, the night before the race, you can see the axle just goes up in here, it captures the front, and then here it's a quick release, slides in, you pull one pin, get the axle out. We made it a little bit too easy to get the axle out apparently, because the night before the race, we ended up staying in a hotel because it's about 110 degrees out, and somebody decided they wanted that axle more than we did and actually took our spare brand new Rhino 2.0 axle out of the back of the car. Thankfully, we had no problem. We actually just have the stock axles on the car now. Going to go through and inspect these CV joints, but first visual inspection, everything looks great. The stock axles did well. Really hoping to replace them with some Rhino 2.0 axles before too long, and really strengthen up everything front and rear. You can see we had a coating supposed to resist 2,000 degrees on this exhaust and ended up coming off, did not withstand racing temperatures on there. At one point, we stopped and I looked inside the exhaust and the core was definitely glowing red hot there. So it does get pretty hot. But just going to strip that down, go to the bare stainless or titanium, whatever it is, and call it a day. Coming around the car here a little bit, you can see, of course, we have the awesome Mudbuster fender flares on the car. That protected us from a lot of debris coming up into the cab. The inside actually stayed pretty clean, all things considered, because of these huge fenders that we have on there. And they protect things from coming down the car as well. We have not yet made the rear mud flaps on this, but going to do that before too long as well, to help protect those rear suspension components from any damage being kicked up from the front as well. One thing to note, everything held up great, respectively, but things did change a little bit. So this door is now a little bit harder to open and close than it was before. So it does close, you just got to get a little bit more emphasis than needed before. It almost wanted to close itself before. And now you can see when I pop it open, it really springs open because it's under tension there. So going to lube it up, maybe loosen it and see if we can realign it to make it smooth opening and closing again. Inside, of course, we have our Corbeau seats, super comfortable. This was a short race, but all things considered, still very comfortable being in the car, getting out of the car, even with a few, kind of oh shit moments along the way. And with those moments, we're super happy to have these PRP harnesses in here with these, big 3-inch harnesses going over our Hans devices, but these huge pads keeping our shoulders safe. Would have been much more sore without those than we were after the race. Still had a little soreness over the shoulders and the traps, but feeling pretty good overall. Let me go ahead and turn this light on here. Got that KC Cyclone up there, providing us with some in-car light. You can see we have the rugged Mach 3.2 pumper there, provided plenty of fresh air for us during the race. No problems at all there. We do run both a Lawrence Elite 7 Ti2 navigation here. The cover on it, of course, most of you know what this looks like. Pretty straightforward stuff. As a backup, but our lead nav on the iPad with that GPS antenna I showed you before is actually our main navigation. Other than that, everything else has pretty much been covered in past videos. We do have an extinguisher down there that is, hidden under the passenger's feet or the co-driver's feet. Radio, intercom, got that 3.2 Mach 3.2 controller, some more switches in there. And one thing I haven't actually covered yet, we do have a Optima battery in here that replaced our stock battery. So I was able to come up with a custom enclosure for it, basically, or mount to keep it down. And that Optima worked great. No flickering of lights, low power, anything throughout the race or the hour of staging beforehand because the race was delayed. What else? Other thing to note, we did come up with some custom seat mounts. I am 6'4", so pretty tall to fit in this Can-Am. Wanted to get the seat down lower in this thing and a little bit more reclined back, if you notice that angle. So came up with some in-house Gearhead Grind Garage designed seat mounts. Did awesome. No shakes, rattles, anything like that. And that's pretty much it. The car did great overall. Definitely looking forward to replacing these tires. Hopefully hook up with a tire sponsor, maybe get some BFGs on there, something along those lines. Would love to have them on board for this. But everything else did pretty solid. We were told by our pit that our sway bar was broken. It's loose, but it doesn't seem broken. However, we did get some serious body roll during the race. So looking to replace that as well with a thicker sway bar unit and some links up there. Still had the stock links on the front and the rear. go down here and show you how small these rear links are. So we're almost expecting them to break. Did have an order on some, just didn't get them in time for the race. Oh, what else? One other quick note, we have that quick release clutch or belt housing cover in there. So we're able to pull those pins out and get that out. But yeah, that should be it for now. Feel free to shoot us any questions that you have about the car. Did solid, really looking forward to tuning the suspension more moving forward. I think that's our only downside right now. But everything did really, really good overall. Oh, and also had a little bit more power this race. We got a dyno jet on board here. And need to get a bigger sticker on this car. But have dyno jet on board with some tuning. And then we do have the dyno jet charge tube kind of hidden back here. Can't see it very much, it's covered in dust right now, but the charge tube and blow off valve from dyno jet. Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed the breakdown of the car there. You know, like we said earlier, everything held up really, really well. We have a good idea now of things that we want to change, including a stiffer front sway bar. Going to go with an aftermarket front sway bar. We're going to do sway bar links all the way around, of course, to make sure we don't break those. Although it was kind of expected we might. Maybe mess around with the tune a little bit more, and then for sure the first thing that we need to do is the suspension, in terms of we need new shock valving on there and tuning, set the ride height, get everything dialed in, and some new progressive rate coil springs on there as well that are set a little bit better for the extra weight we have, better than the factory ones. So either some iBox, some shock therapy ones, something like that. Pretty short list, thankfully. Gonna tear down the car, make sure everything's lubed, greased, ready for the next race as well, and do a full prep on it. And then hopefully throw some Rhino 2.0s all the way around for some new axles from Super ATV. Gonna try to get a hold of them. And new tires as well, as we definitely need it, but also want to run more spares. So right now we came into it, only had one spare wheel, one spare tire. Want to get a few extras for the pit, that way in case we break anything or get a flat, we can come back into the pit after we change out that spare, put a fresh one on the car, and then take off again and have confidence we still have a spare on the car. Because we did run, you know, a lap and a half or whatever with no spare. So if we would have had any problems, we would have been kind of stuck out there. Well, thanks for checking out the video. Feel free to let us know if you have any questions, comments, anything like that. You know, please feel free to like, subscribe, all that. We'd love to get your feedback as well. And hopefully come around and check out some more videos and some more racing action from us. Thanks.